Wrong intro. Here we go. Welcome everybody to this week's live stream. Hope everybody's doing great today. So we are going to be making a custom pen, a bespoke pen, a kitless pen, whatever you call them. It is going to be handcrafted, a fountain pen. So last week we made some pretty cool looking blanks inspired by the photo that I showed at the beginning. So Kid Cooper sent in this picture. He challenged me to make some blanks like this. He supports the show quite a bit, so I have lots of room for doing some fun stuff with him. To be honest, he buys pretty much every one of the pens that I make on the stream. So I thought, okay, let's do this. It looks like a really fun mix. So this is what we came up with. I'm going to put those two down because those are the ones I'm going to use. Doesn't really matter, but I think these turned out pretty cool. The colors I think are pretty representative. I don't know. And this is one of those cases where these look really good as blanks. So I'm going to switch back to the photo. I mean, really, it's pretty close. Pretty close, I think, to that picture. Wrong one. Where am I at here? Sony Cam. Okay. So we got some pretty cool looking blanks. Hopefully this isn't a case where they look better on the outside. I've never actually seen that happen. But so to make a bespoke pen, I'm going to be using two of these blanks. We'll do, I don't know, I'll probably split them up probably like this kind of. And I should be able to get a body and a section out of one and then the cap out of the other one, and I'll just kind of split it up. I'm not concerned about lining up grain, like patterns or anything like that. Honestly, with just kind of color swirl blanks, unless you have like a very specific swirl going on, it doesn't matter usually. If you want to be super crazy about it, you can get them all lined up and everything. But a lot of times, even if you do, the other issue is, and for those of you who've been, following Chad's tutorials about it, one of the problems is I'm going to be using a triple lead, threads on these things, so it only lines up in one position in the first place out of the three. So, especially for something where we're using different blanks and it's probably not going to matter. I don't really care too much about the lining up of anything. If you really want to, you can still play with it if you want and line it up, to a specific, lead that you like better. But the other nice thing is you do have three of them. And so one of those positions usually lines up pretty decent anyway, I've found. So like I said, up to the maker, how far you want to go with trying to get like minor details to be, precise on these things. And I'm not an expert at all. I've made probably like 10 or 15 pens at this point. I'm going to be relying heavily on my cheat sheet notes. Making these custom pens is not hard, I wouldn't say. I think if you can turn a pen, if you've been turning pens, with the kits for a long time, this isn't going to be particularly difficult. The first time is going to seem a little overwhelming. But like I said, I just use cheat sheet code, what steps do I need to do? That's the only difference is there's, I would say, probably 3 to 4 times as many like steps that you need to go through that need to be done in order. So, as long as you write down your cheat sheet code, for each step, and I even have, I've gotten to the point where did I put those pens? Kind of gotten to the point where I'm making very similar pens each time. I decided it would be a lot better to get very comfortable with this process and not worry about the design. Like come up with a dimension, design that I like, that works fine, and then stick with that for quite a while and just practice making the pens. That way I'm not, trying to change things. That's where things start to get a little bit more difficult when you're changing all the dimensions of things. Then you have to have notes for each one of those things and really think about where is the converter and the nib and all these things going. If you can just kind of settle on dimensions and then just focus on the process, for me, much easier. That way I can just kind of follow the same steps and get that kind of, burned into my memory Then once I'm like very comfortable making these things, which I'm getting to the point where I'm pretty comfortable, but you know, once you're very comfortable making, you know, going through the steps, knowing what you need to do, then start playing around with the design. That's my game plan anyway for these things. But I find them to be very fun. You know, if you haven't made a custom pen before, you know, there's a little bit of tooling that you need to get ahead of time. But one of the nice things is you kind of pay for tooling up front. So you have to buy, you know, taps and dies and drill bits and you know, a few things. There's a couple extra, you know, tools that make things a little bit easier to do, especially on a wood lathe. But you have kind of more of an upfront cost. But once you have those tools, then, you know, the only thing you need to do is have material to make a 3-piece pen. It's all made from, you know, the blank, basically. You don't have all these kit parts. You don't have to buy kits, which is kind of nice. The only thing that you'll need if you're making fountain pens is the nib and converter. So, you know, it's not too bad. I guess, you know, compared to like making a Sierra pen kit or Wall Street or whatever, you know, those are like, I don't know, what are they, like $5 or something like that. Nibs generally are going to cost more than that. So I guess you still have some cost in a fountain pen, but at the same time, you know, the process I find is a lot more rewarding, you know, cutting the threads. I find it fascinating that we can, you know, with a few machines and some tools, we can literally make everything on a pen. I think it's just really cool. I like that better personally. So anyway, let's see here. Who was here first? There's a lot of people. Mike McEwen was here. Yeah, happy Veterans Day to everybody. I don't know if happy is the... everybody gets upset about certain things. So anyway, let's see here. Who else we got? We got Amy's in the house and Russell. And let's see. If I miss you, I apologize. Hugh's here. He'll watch in the morning. That's cool. Looks like Russell's making a ring. That's cool. I think it was Russell, right? Yeah, working on must be Florida State. That's cool. Garnet. Cool. And Nikki's working on some pens. That's cool. Let's see here. Brian's here from TBC Bushings and Stefan. And Homer Lex, what's going on, man? He just made his first pen. And let's see, Jules the cat, Alan's here, Paul's here, Mark. Sweet. Still working on the plywood storage stand. Nice. Yeah, I know. Some projects like that, you're just like, oh my God, is it over with? I hear you. So wait, is Amy on the Turner's TV thing, or is Amy on Amy's thing and someone else is on the Turner's TV? Whatever thing. Peter's here. Cool. Oh, hope you feel better soon, Peter. I hate being sick. It's like the worst. You know, the two things that, I mean, I think everybody agrees. Being sick and then being injured, which I'm kind of injured. I got like tennis elbow or something, and it's just been a nightmare for months now. I'm going to wait until January. If it's not significantly better by January, I'm going to have to go to the doctor. I'm trying to do, like, I already know exercises and stuff, but man, it just sucks. I was picking up my bike out of the bed of my truck, and something just screamed at me. I almost dropped the bike, and it's been not happy since then. Alan's making cutting boards. Nice. I'm working on trying to come up with some some interesting faux burl stuff for stoppers. I'm not a big stopper maker necessarily, but I do supply stopper companies with blanks, and I've been wanting to get into faux burl stoppers. So I've been trying to figure out if I can get wood looking, like real burl looking colors together. So I've been kind of playing around with that. I've been actually turning a lot of stoppers, more stoppers than I think I've ever turned in my life. So that's pretty fun though. And I think those are probably going to be Christmas gifts for everybody. Let's see here. Lilac tree wood turning. Nice. Cool. Welcome to the stream. Lewis is here and Bonnie. Man, there's a lot of people here. All right, so I'll quit talking. I got a couple quick announcements. Then we'll start working on these things. I'll kind of show you how I'm going to do this and what I do. I do things very, a lot of people are like, oh, it'd be great to see your take on making custom pens. Well, I learned from Chad and Jim Hines. both basically. I kind of got the general process from Jim, mainly from watching that his demo from Turner's warehouse, and then I went down and I kind of played around. I had some experience. I'd made a couple before, but I used that. Got a tenon cutter, which I think is pretty much the game changer for me. That really got me going on these things. And then I played around a little bit. And then I went down and kind of did like a one-on-one with Chad. And so I've just been kind of playing around with it, having fun with it, and it's been really fun. So if you're thinking about getting into this stuff, Christmas is coming up, the holidays, maybe say, hey, get me, these taps and dies for Christmas or whatever, and jump into it. Next year's a good one. Let's see here. It's like to be the cheer section. Nice. Okay, so quickly, I have a new Happy Fun cup. It's up on the website. This one's got all kinds of craziness going on in it. Let me scoot back a little bit. Try and get it so it's not so weird, glary. So anyway, that's on the website. I'm going to drop a link right now. So if you want to pick that up, they're pretty cheap, 20 bucks. It's a lot of resin. One thing that I thought would be a really cool project, and I'm going to do this eventually, Stainless Bottle Stoppers came out with these threaded ring sets. Basically what they are is you drill in and kind of sink these things into the... do I have one that's taken apart? This one's open already. They sent me this gigantic one, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be making a gigantic urn. But anyway, you basically, you take your blank and you would cut it. I don't know exactly, this is the other problem, is I don't do this type of wood turning stuff a lot, so I haven't gotten to these yet. But you basically would cut it in half and make like a jar or an urn or whatever you want to call it. And then you'd glue these into each side, and then your pieces screw together with some really nice threads, and they'd never get messed up. And I was thinking they sent, so like I said, this big one, probably not, I don't know, I guess I could use it. It just seemed like overkill. But they have three different sizes or so. And so I thought this would be a really cool project, using a fun cup to use one of these things. So one of these days I'm going to do that. Like I said, I'll have to do a little research on how you do this exactly. But that's available on the website. And then we dropped some new blanks, guys. I'm going to go to the overhead view. That one. Got some new blanks on the website. Plumeria. Now I'm bummed I don't have an example of what these things look like once you've turned them down. Oh, I do have one. I turned one down. I made a pen and gave it to Jim Hines, actually. Is this 3? Where's the other one? 2. There it is. So I made a custom pen out of one of these things, and I gave it to Jim, and I totally forgot to take a picture of it. But it's just kind of a simple. There's a lot of white, but if you've seen Plumeria flowers, there's some oranges, some yellows, some pinks. There's all kinds of different stuff, but it's very light. I wanted to go for kind of a simple. I don't know. This is a different type of blank than I usually do. So we got both sizes, 5.5s, and we have the 8.5s. If you want to do custom, you can make a custom out of, two of these as well. It'll just cost you more. So anyway, those are available. And again, guys, when I drop new blanks, make sure that you're signed up to the email newsletter, because everybody that's on the email newsletter knows that there's a discount running right now. So make sure to sign up for that, so you get the news before everybody else, and you save the most money. All right, so I'm going to put these guys away real quick here, get them out of the thing. So again, they're called Plumeria. I'll drop a link real quick for you guys if anybody's interested in those. They've been popular so far, but I'm stocked up. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't messing around. Let's see here. That's not the right one. Blanks. It's on my home page too. First thing, if you scroll down just a little ways. Plumeria. Here we go. There's a link. Okay. Yeah, Gretchen really liked them too, and actually they're inspired by. So when we got married on the Big Island of Hawaii, and she was wearing a Plumeria flower. It was, I think it was like fake actually, but she was wearing one in her, like, you know how they wear them in their ear. So it's based on that actually. That's kind of the inspiration. She has it hanging in our. I need to get a picture of that thing. She's got it hanging up in the bathroom, you know, like by the somewhere, and I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to make like a Plumeria, you know, based on that. And it's got such bright colors, but like I said, it's a lot of white in a lot of them. And it depends on the pour. Sometimes, you know, every blank's different. So some of them have more color than others, but just light little tendrils of color, but they're, you know, they zip out at you. They're bright. Yeah, lots of mics in the house. I love dances with aardvarks. That's so funny. Okay, so yeah, bespoke pens. Dan F said bespoke pens are fun to make. It is really. I don't know. Not that I don't like making kit pens, and there's you know nothing wrong with kit pens at all. They're pretty awesome. There's so many different things you can do with them, and one of the nice things is they are. You know, you got the bushings and everything's pretty quick on those. I mean, I can knock out, you know, even like a junior, especially if you're just talking about like resin, and all you have to do is polish the blank rather than doing CA and filling little pits or anything like that for some of the, you know, like pine cone blanks or stuff like that. If you're just turning up a resin blank, I mean, you can knock these things out, you know, like start to finish in like an hour, as long as it's, you know, the tubes are glued in and all that stuff. They're really quick, they're fun, they're awesome, but I just, like I said, I really enjoy doing the cutting the threads and all that kind of good stuff. It's just, I don't know, a little bit more. I feel like when you hand it over to somebody, you're like, I made that whole thing, like literally, and especially, you know, if you make your own blanks, you're like, I mean, literally start to finish. I made it by hand kind of thing is how I feel about it. So it's just kind of it one-ups a little bit. But you can do so many different things with them. All right, so let's switch over. I guess let me just talk about what I'm going to do here. So first off, like I said, I've been kind of honing in. Now I've been working on trying to get a design, like specs, dimensions, and I, you know, it's nice to do different things. I was saying to try to stay with the same dimensions at first. It is kind of nice to play around a little bit. I was kind of doing different things, so I guess what I said was actually sort of a lie. I kind of played around with things, but within parameters kind of thing. Like I didn't really change the lengths of things too much besides the section. My sections started out a little bit longer than they are now, and I've kind of settled on, this is about a 0.85, 0.9 inch. And I find that to be, for me, where I like it, the sweet spot. But for the most part, most of the other dimensions haven't changed. The difference has been, you know, playing around with making where the body and the cap meet up, that are like, they're aligned. There's no like lip for the cap. I did that first, and it seemed like that was like kind of harder, or it was more challenging. But to be honest, I didn't like it because it just, to me, it just looked like a blank in the end. It didn't look pen-like unless you put it like a cap and all, or you know, like a clip and stuff on it. It just kind of looked like this long cylinder. It looked like a blank. So I wasn't super enthused with that, so I switched to putting a cap, and I had a pretty big like, you know, wide cap, and I've narrowed things down quite a bit. So a lot of it has to do with the shaping, which you can do, you know, play around with a lot. But what I've done is I know exactly what length my blanks need to be, and so I have that written down. So for my blank lengths, my body, I want to start out with a 4-inch blank, and then the section is going to be about 1.2. I can actually probably lower that a little bit even further, but I'm going to cut them on the bandsaw, so I don't think it really matters which one I go with. I'm going to pick this for the body and the section. And I'd like to get the body and the section out of the same blank, which I can. This is a 5.5 inch long blank. And then for this one, it'll just be the cap. It doesn't really matter where I cut it necessarily, because I have all this material, but I usually cut it down to about 3 inches. So I'm gonna turn on the camera. I'm just gonna quickly cut these things on the bandsaw, get them to my dimensions, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll. So let's see here. Ah, Kid Cooper's here. Who's having a wedding? Oh, you're the best man. Nice. He's always checking in while he's at like birthday parties and weddings. Well, have a good wedding. I'll see you in the comments probably after your wedding. All right, that's the wrong camera. I'm just going to turn on this camera, and then you can kind of see from a distance. I'm just over at my bandsaw. The bandsaw is a nice thing to cut. Like you could use a table saw, but you're going to lose, the kerf, quite a bit of the kerf. Bandsaw is, you're not going to lose as much material. All right, so I got to get my safety gear on. Measure real quick. Okay, and let's see here. We're going to go, I'm going to have the orange. Hopefully I'm on camera here. Yeah. I'm going to have the orange be kind of the bottom of the pen, and then this be kind of the section, so it'll all be kind of running into the same type of material as it goes through the section and then the cap. I maybe could flip it where the orange is in the middle, but the way the fish was in the picture, the orange was kind of at the tail end, so that's why I want to do it this way. All right, so I'm going to turn actually I don't need to turn the dust collector on. Cut one. We got our 4-inch body. And then there's no need to start longer. I'm going to get my calipers out and measure the 1.2 inch on this guy. Actually, I can do that over here on the camera. Here we go. So really handy to pick up a set of calipers. You don't even need to buy super expensive ones. They pretty much all work. In fact, I even bought a plastic set. Let me get this face mask off my face. I can't talk. Where did the plastic ones go that I just bought? Shoot. Because I was sick of measuring. I was kind of tired of measuring actual finished pens with metal jaws. So I went and bought a plastic one. And I honestly, I mean, for like the measurements that I'm really going for, like what I'm checking on things, like it doesn't need to be dead accurate. But let's just see how they compare. 19.1 with my plastic, and that's in millimeters. And it does millimeters and inches. 19.1, 19.3 on the, let's make sure this is zeroed. Yeah. Okay, so these things are not accurate, actually. 19.28. Wow. Oh. I think I was not measuring it correctly. They're probably pretty close. So, but they won't mar, stuff. So these were like $8, I think, for the plastic ones. And they'd get you pretty close, but I want to go for a 1.2 inch. So obviously this is I'm not gonna finish this pen today. This is gonna take a little while. So I made the cut here. I wanna go get the other blank. Like I said, this process requires thinking a little bit, and it's not something that I recommend rushing through. All right, and I wanna make a mark on these. Here's the blank, this is how I cut it. Okay. That's how it was like lined up. So what I want to do is I'm going to make a mark. The body is there. Section goes there. All right. And I want to, the thing is I've cut on the wrong end of the blank in the past on some things. So I don't want to do that. So this is the body. Make it all kinds of good stuff. And then the nib is going to go on the other side. Let's see here. Let me get my thing. So I need to be measuring from this side, making the mark and cutting the excess off the other end. Like somewhere in that area. It doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfectly 1.2 inches, but all right, so let's see if I got this on the screen here. Probably some glares, but body section, and then let's see here, the body. And you can make whatever, however you want, whatever makes sense to you. You know, it's good to write some notes on these guys. There we go, that's lined up right there. And I'm going to cut it right there. And this is 1.2. All right, let's go over, switch cameras. I need a camera crew. To that one. So I think what we'll probably get done is today, we might be able to get all the drilling and tapping done. I don't know. Bare minimum, we'll probably get at least 2 of the components drilled and tapped. Now for this one, I don't like sticking my hands anywhere near the blade, so I'm gonna pull out a clamp. That way I don't have to stick my fingers in there. Go get my mask. I don't know. Such a small cut. The biggest problem with this bandsaw is it shoots shavings out. The dust collection on the bandsaw is so terrible. It shoots things out at me. All right, so we got our section. Luckily, if I screw anything up, I got another blank, a few of them. And then this one needs to be 4 inches or so. Cut from the blue side. All right. Where did the pen go? Okay. All right, so again, I'm going to write notes on these things here just to make sure, because like I said, I literally, so one of my other blanks, it's so easy to make a mistake, even though it's like, it seems impossible to make the mistake. So this is one of my Tequila Sunrise blanks. And the way that they're poured, they're like a half and half, like a gradient, where you have the orange and then the yellow, and it kind of bleeds together in the middle, right? Somehow I managed to drill in on the body on the wrong end of this blank. It should be going, there's some yellow here, it should have been going like this. So it's so quick, it's always good to slow down, you know, write down some notes and make sure. Now it's not a big deal on this pen, but you know, it would have been nice to do that the right way. You know, so here's the cap. Oh, I didn't need 4 inches, I needed 3. Shoot, see, so easy. I got to go back to the bandsaw. I don't even need 4 inches on this thing. I guess actually it doesn't really matter in this case. It's a little bit easier, I think, when you're just starting with a bespoke blank, because you can just kind of label everything and you're not like, oh, how much do I have? So it's not a big deal. I don't need to cut this down, but this is the cap. And this is where the body is. And I'm going to keep it lined up like it would have been. So body on this end, this is where I need to drill. Okay. So I'm going to go over to the lathe. I'm going to get my notes. Gotta get my notes out. Get my plastic calipers. Super high quality. Put this pen away. All right, and I'm going to show you my setup on the lathe here. So I have this, it's not going to work today because I'm going to put my phone here so I can see the chat. And I need to stop and look at the chat really quickly. But normally, if I'm not sticking my phone on this is like a phone holder that holds with the mag switch, whatever. What I usually do though is I have a little magnet and I can keep my notes right in front of me. So I don't need this one, but I'm going to start with the body. And so I'll just stick my body notes up on this thing and they're right in front of me. So I can see what's going on. Now the first step, so I got 9 steps and I even have like, you know, square the face, center drill. I have everything listed out that I need to do to get the body ready to roll. All right, so I got my let me go get my phone so I can look at the chat. I got my collet chuck ready. Get this stuff out of the way. Today I'll just probably put this thing up on my lathe up there. But I watch my notes every single time I make a pen. All right, so that's the cap. We don't need that. This is the body. We're going to be drilling into this side. This is where the section goes. Am I on? Let's see here. Let's get the camera in here. Let's get going. Quit messing around. Sorry. don't watch the camera. There we go. Okay. So again, I got my section is going in there, so we want to be drilling into this side. Tighten that up. I find a lot of times, this is the Beal chuck, which they don't make anymore, I guess, but I think Turner's Warehouse has a couple of these. They're pretty good. I don't love the way that they do oh, I forgot to go find these wrenches, but if you want to tighten it, I went and bought these separate because the thing that came with it was terrible. So this works pretty good. I don't even find you really need to tighten these things like crank them down. It works fine by just doing it by hand, but whatever you like. And some of these may not work as well as others by just doing it by hand. You need to make sure that the thing isn't going to come loose. That's the big deal. All right, so let me get going here. Here we go. Yeah, you have to just imagine what I'm doing. Come on, guys. Oh, and by the way, that Tequila Sunrise blank, Turner's Warehouse is the only place to get them right now. I'm not selling them on my website, just in case anybody was interested in picking those up. They're pretty cool. If you're going to make a kit pen out of them, I think you're going to probably want to paint the tube white, or the inside, actually probably the inside of the blank possibly white. I think that might be the best way. But they are pretty, you know, even for one of these guys, you know, it is pretty see-through, but they're pretty bomb. I mean, it is bright. It's a pretty cool looking little blank, especially if you do it if you do it the right way. Don't drill into the back side of it. All right, so the first step we need to do is trim up the edge of that after the bandsaw cut. Get the lathe rolling. It's a little bit close. Get that nice and smooth. Okay. And this goes pretty quick, like, you know, especially, I mean, I might have to kind of fumble around thinking about stuff a little bit on the stream here. But, so we got our center drill. These things are great. They make sure that your drill is starting out where it needs to go. Center drill second. Slow that down. All right, and then the next thing, and this is a little, I'm going to share a little, I don't know, something to think about. One of the problems that I have, so what we're doing next is we're going to be drilling a 6mm hole to accommodate, and so I can use the tenon cutter. And so what that does is it's going to fit this mount, this whatever bar, that's going to, you know, index the cutter head so it doesn't move around on you. The problem is a 6mm hole, and you need to drill it, you know, so that it accommodates this at least. I usually go in like 3 inches, but the problem I've found is the standard drill bit that I was using, and I'm using like the Viking or Norseman, which are pretty good drill bits. I don't know if the flutes maybe on these are kind of weird, but it clogs up like no other, no matter what I do. Using WD-40, I've tried WD-40, I've tried mineral oil, all kinds of different cutting fluids and stuff, and it's just like I'm taking two rotations and I got to clear it out because it won't go anymore, and it's heating up. So what I decided to do is try a parabolic bit, and this works way better. Now these things are not cheap, but if you are having issues with that, if you need more speed, if you want, you know, quicker drilling, these parabolic bits are pretty awesome. And this is a Goering, is the brand. There's also Fish, I believe, is the other brand. Let's see, where's the... So, and I'd have to figure out, I don't know which one this is exactly. I don't think this actually has the part number, but Goering is the company, and it's a really good parabolic bit. The problem is they have like 50 billion of different parabolic bits. So if you can talk to somebody, that would be a lot helpful. If there's like a dealer by you. Now another way to go is Fish. And a lot of you guys might be familiar with Fish. They actually make parabolic bits for pen making. You can get these things at like Woodcraft, Rockler. My only issue is it's a little bit longer, and I'd rather have these things be as short as possible, but this one's got more, the Goering's got more non-parabolic flute, where this thing's really cut down. There's not, so the problem is you can get a lot more deflection the longer this is, and the less, you know, the more fluting it has, but both of them work pretty well. Like I said, if you're having issues, if it's a problem, I don't want to sit there and wait and back and forth with it. So I was like, I think there's a better way. So I bought it. It's not necessary, but it will speed up the drilling, especially on these smaller holes. I mean, frankly, I don't even really need to use a lubricant. Now this is a brand new bit, so that has one thing to do with it, but check this out. Locked. Here we go. There we go. I didn't even use any fluid. Look at this. Bam. So the parabolic flutes clear chips a lot better than your standard flutes, and in certain manufacturers maybe better than others. I don't know. I would assume that Viking or Norseman their flutes should eject chips well. They're a pretty good brand, but you know, maybe another brand would work better. I don't know. Let's see, I need to figure out where I need to go to. There's my mark. Okay. I like to stop the lathe and then get it set up again after I've retracted the quill. Problem is, you can, if you shove it in there, it can kind of grab and start sucking the drill bit in. Especially if you're doing it on the second cut. So like if I did this one and then the next one to widen this hole, it will just grab and suck your quill in, your tailstock. So I just turn it off, get it, you know, reset, and then start it back up. Pull it back just a little bit and then restart it. But look at this. I mean, it's cutting like butter. Kind of slowed down. Once you get to the bottom, it starts getting a little bit slower, but if you want faster, I mean, I'm seriously considering buying some parabolic bits in some of the other sizes even too, just to see how they work. Totally not necessary, like I said, but definitely speeds things up. All right. Typically I do use cutting fluid of some sort, but this cut doesn't really matter and I don't need it, so for, you know, chip clearing, so it's not really that big of a deal. All right, so this thing is not set for the right. Is this what we need? Am I doing this right? Yeah, tenon cutter, that's right. And we need the, yeah, we need it for the 13. Let's see, I got to think. Now is when I got to start thinking, guys. Let's see here. So CJ, oh, what the heck, the camera? Sorry, guys. Where are we at here? There it is. Well, you missed it, but the parabolic bit works a lot better. So this is a parabolic flute. And that compares to this one. The parabolic, it clears chips super fast. So like I said, it's not a big deal. It's just a patience thing, and I have none. So I went and bought a parabolic flute bit. All right, so this is the body. We drilled the 6 millimeter hole, and that's for this guy to accommodate that, to cut the tenon. So I need to get my 14 millimeter bushing, get this thing lined up here. Love the tenon cutter. This is like my favorite tool ever. I really would not want to live without this one. Okay. Before I had this was one of the most annoying parts of making pens, you know, custom pens for me. Now, I go down, I even have specific amounts that I cut, so I'm going to cut this 0.21. You really don't need a lot of cap threads on these pens. And I'm actually just going to use the, oops, I'm not even going to mark. I'm just going to use my calipers to mark. Some people may not like this. If you've got really expensive calipers, you may not want to do it this way. Let me get my notes out of the way. Oops, dropped the can. All right, so I got a line to go to. And I like to turn on the dust collector because it just makes everything super quick. Sorry I didn't get that. I thought I don't know what happened to the camera angle, guys. That's why I need a camera crew, but I ain't paying anybody, I'll tell you that. All right, turn the dust collector on. Yeah, the tenon cutter is awesome. So I'm going to be putting, 14 millimeter threads on. For me, that seems to be the sweet spot. I've tried 12, 13, and 14. I think 15, and I own a 15 pen, and that's fine, but I kind of prefer the wider. Personally, like the wider diameter pens. And I think I can show you guys an example. See, I think this one's a 13. I'm gonna pull out my plastic calipers. It's just for like stupid things like that. These plastic calipers. I don't want to scratch up. This is a Higgins pen. I don't want to scratch that up. Yeah, so it's a 13 millimeter. So that's a 13, and that's not bad. I think Chad was saying most people use the 13s, and this is a pretty good size pen. I think 13's pretty close, but for me, I like the 14s just a little bit better. And there's barely any difference. It's just a little bit more. Just, you know, it's 1 millimeter. Just a little bit thicker. This is one of my pens at 14. 15 gets a little bit bigger. I don't have my Lusso pen, but I also have a 15, and it's pretty big. Still like it, but I don't really want to buy another tap and die set. So I have 12, 13, and 14. All right. I'm gonna put a little chamfer on this guy. And I've really been digging the sanding the tenon thing, because my threads in the final cap, number one, they're maybe a little bit shinier. I'm not 100% sure that it makes a lot of difference sanding one grit on these things, but definitely get a better fit if I sand these guys. So that's pretty awesome. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is chamfer this guy. Just a little bit. And then get our wet sanding goodies out. So big thank you to Chad for that idea. Jim also mentioned that, because I was telling him that I was having some issues with my cap and body threads being just a little bit tight. He had a couple of pretty cool recommendations on how to adjust that after the fact. He also said, well, why don't you just sand the tenon? That's too much. I'm just taking a little bit of 600 here. It doesn't take a lot. You don't really need to sit here and sand the heck out of this thing. And then I've been going up to 800. I don't know. This is where you're really kind of splitting hairs a little bit, but. All right, that's it. So it's like the silliest 2-second little thing, but like I said, I've been getting a way better fit in the end just by sanding with a couple grits real quick. All right, let's see here. What's going on? He's still popped in before the next thing we got to do. You're crazy, man. Yeah, you could do 60. I mean, you can make it as big as you want. One of the biggest problems, though, is that the bigger you go, the bigger the material needs to start. And, you know, I have no plans to make thicker blanks personally. All right, so the next thing we got to do, cut the threads. So the next tool that I just absolutely love, there's ways to do this without these tools, but I mean, even if you have a metal lathe, this is actually a pretty awesome setup. So this guy goes in the tailstock, and then this little handle is concentric with everything, but it can move forward and back as well as tap the threads. It's just, this is a brilliant device. Even on a metal lathe, they're meant to be doing all of these types of machining operations, it's still not cut and dry. Like they don't have a setup without doing some things to the metal lathe to do tapping. You know, tapping's not as hard, but the biggest problem is it's hard to have pressure, you know, from the tailstock. You got to kind of constantly be messing around with stuff. So this just gives you all the tools that you need, even if you even if you had a metal lathe to do this, this works on that too. So it's pretty neat. Eventually I want to get different handles so I can just have everything ready, but it's not hard. Again, I'm just lazy. So I got to take that guy out, swap it for the 14 millimeter. Like I said, another reason why I haven't really been messing around with a bunch of different sizes, I'm kind of sticking with stuff, is it allows me to get this done a little bit quicker. I don't have to, you know, swap things out all over the place. I know exactly which sizes I need. Let's see here, that's on the... Now for dies, you know, for your initial cut, the starting, I don't know, you probably can't see on this thing, but... Oops, I got paper towel in there. Maybe you can see now. There's writing on one side, and that's the starting side. It's a little bit tapered on that side, so it starts just a little bit easier on that. And then you're going to want to flip it because the back end of it, which is the non-writing side, it goes all the way out. So you finish and get a full cut. You know, flip the thing around. I'll show you, and then you can get your threads all the way down. All right, so let's get this guy up here. I don't know how we can get the best angle here. I'm gonna put this like over on top of the lathe. Maybe that's a good angle. What do you guys think of that? Yeah, I know, this thing is just really cool. All right, so you can use any kind of cutting fluid. WD-40 works fine. I actually bought some real cutting fluid, mineral oil. To be honest, I've used them all. This is really thin and it tends to drip more, I guess. This is a cutting fluid that's water-based. It's thicker. I gotta be honest, I don't see any difference between this stuff. For this type of an operation anyway, there may be differences if you're using cutting fluid like on a metal lathe. For like machining stuff, that might be different, but for just simple tapping and drilling and stuff, I gotta be honest, mineral oil works just as good as this. It's the same. I'm just gonna pull out some WD-40 on this one. Just get that wet. You know, the other thing is, I mean, how much lubricant you need, I don't know. You could do this dry if you really wanted to. I don't know, can you guys see? Even a decent angle? Not really. Doesn't seem like it. Hold on a minute. Gotta show you the cutting. Let's get the camera on the back side here. The dust collector out of the way. Let's try and get you guys a good shot of the... This is my favorite part. Cutting the threads. It's such a... I feel like it's magic or something. Oh, I got a camera in the way. Or a phone, I should say. Well... Oh. There's not enough room. Here we go. That's about as good as you're going to get. Okay. So we go in, and I like to tighten this down just a little bit. Like I said, I don't tighten it off the bat. I just make sure it's tight when I'm doing certain operations. And I find that these, for some reason, this die, the 14 millimeter die, seems to be tighter. That's another reason why sanding that tenon seemed to kind of help me. Seemed like it was taking quite a big bite. So we got the first initial stages done. Now we're going to flip it in the die holder. One of the things that I like about using WD-40 actually is I don't have a problem getting WD-40 all over my lathe. It actually makes everything smooth, slide nicely. So that's actually one of the reasons why I've been kind of using WD-40 lately. It just seems to kind of make sense. I don't know about that cutting fluid stuff. It's not particularly... let's see if... Yeah. All right, so I'm loosening up the die from the holder. And I'm going to actually literally flip it around. I like to get these little set screws kind of centered. I would imagine that that is useful. And then we're just going to kind of, I need to make sure that I've gotten the threads cut as deep as possible. See, I'm taking more shavings on the back side. There we go. It's helpful to have a little nylon brush. This is not exactly the greatest thing. This pipe cleaner, it works, but it's kind of nice to have something to kind of clean things off a little bit. All right, so we got some cap threads. Let's see how this looks with a cap. I just happen to have a 14mm cap sitting here. That's looking pretty nice. Now, there's two different ways to, I almost dropped that. There's two different ways to relieve. You need to put some sort of a relief in your threads, and it needs to be either on the tenon or in the mortise, in the cap. So either on the body or the cap. And I personally don't like taking a tool and then digging in. You can take, you know, if you don't mind doing it on the tenon, you would want to come in at the bottom of the threads. Let me get the camera so I can make sure that you guys can see where I'm pointing at. This is kind of crucial because otherwise your cap's really not going to fit particularly well. It's going to be really tight at the end of you know, screwing it on. All right, so you need to relieve something at the bottom, either on the tenon back here, so you could take your detail tool, or you could take, like, if you have a really super thin, I have a 16th inch parting tool that I usually use. I'd rather come in just square than, I find these diamond tools are a little, I end up jacking up the edge more because you got to come in kind of at a weird angle. So since I have this, it works fine, this 16th inch. But I don't like the looks of a tenon, which I can give you an example. I'm pretty sure that my first many pens have it. Let's see if I can find one that has like a significant thing taken out. So that's how I was doing it, and it's simple to take it off the tenon, but I don't really like the looks of it personally. I guess this is the best pen that I have. I've given away all the other ones. I don't know if you're going to be able to really see this, but in person you can really see it. Hard to hold all this stuff and point. So on the inside, I took off some material so that the cap would fit better. And I just don't like the looks of that. It just looks funny to me. So the alternative way to do it is you just take some relief in your cap. And that will do the same exact function, but you can't see that happening. There's no evidence of it, let's say. So I prefer that, and I think that's how Chad did it on the live stream. And it's very simple. You just take a detail tool and carve out a little bit of material out of the cap. You could even take like maybe a different drill bit and drill in just a very slightly larger size drill bit in your cap. But that's what I did on this one. Let's see here. This one I actually took kind of like another drill bit and stepped it on the inside. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of a step drill. So I just kind of widened the first, I don't know, I don't go in that far. Let's see if I can get like a measurement of that. I'm not very good at just looking at stuff and saying, oh, that's like 2 millimeters. I went in like, yeah, like 1.5 millimeters. So it's a very shallow cut, but that's what allows me to not have to adjust those threads on the body, but my cap fits tight even still. Otherwise it would bind up basically. So hopefully that made sense. I don't know if that was probably, most of you are like, I know, I get it. But for anybody that didn't understand that, that's one, you do have to do that, and it's up to you. If you don't really care, it's very simple to just knock off some of this stuff on the tenon, but I just don't like having that like lump material missing area. Oh, and guess what, guys? I got a set of the cutters. What are beading tool cutters from Easywood. So we're going to be playing with those sometime. Pretty excited about that. All right, so let's pull out our notes. Here's my notes. So we are down to, we did cut threads. So now we need to drill the hole for the converter. And this is where things get a little bit crazy with like different bit sizes and steps and how you do things. You'll have to find the right way. I'm pretty sure Chad does it like a little bit differently than I do. Part of it has to do with what bit sets you have on hand or access to. So what I've found, and this is just pure simplicity for me, is if you have the letter bits, which I do, the T bit is all you need to do. And I think other people do multiple different steps for the converters and stuff. I've found if I just drill a T bit 3 inches deep, I'm done. I don't have to mess around with anything else. And one thing that I would highly recommend that you get if you're going to get into this machining and all this kind of junk is one of these. Let's see if I can, this is a huge, my dad gave me this thing. I don't know where he got it. But they have these online and they're free and whatever. But conversion from decimal to different sizes. So these are like the millimeters. This is like your wire gauge. And then there's letters somewhere. Where are the letters at? Right here, like E, D, A, and then our fractions. So it has all the different conversions as well as decimals. So if you wanted something that was close to a T bit, T as in Tom, that's right there. That's 0.358 is the T bit. So you could go with a 9 millimeter, which is what I think a lot of people use. I was finding that it was a little bit tight on the converters or something. So I moved up to a T. You could also go with a 23/64, which is just a little bit higher. So it depends on what bit sets you have access to and all that. But I think you can get away with just drilling one drill hole. I don't know how everybody else's steps and all that stuff work, but the T bit just seems to work fine for me. And I'm going to drill that 3 inches deep. So let me switch the lathe up to the drilling mode. Let's get this thing fixed back up. There's a lot of steps and having to think about the cameras. This is a little bit more involved. Okay, so drilling, get our chuck ready. We got our, where's the T-bit? Got our T-bit. I'm gonna kind of switch the camera position here. Let's see here. Zoom in just a little bit, maybe. There we go. Let's see. I'm gonna stop and look at the. I found the camera issue, I know. What happens when you're a lone ranger and trying to use your brain as well as, let's see, do I not have a mark on this? Gotta mark it. I think my marks wash off. I think WD-40 might wash the marks off. I'd like to actually engrave marks on some of these, like have a set of bits that are just specifically for, you know, 14 millimeter cap and body, and then just like literally like engrave lines and stuff on them or something. Got to be a way to do it. Let's see here, 3 inches deep. What's happening here? There we go. Or so. And these all just, you know, this all depends on, okay, so it just goes to there. All these numbers just depend on how you're, you know, laying things out. Where does your converter nib, you know, all of these numbers work together to give you the dimensions that you need. So some of these, one thing to actually keep in mind though, the limiting factor for me with some of the dimensions with the holes and the drilling and all that stuff actually come down to the mandrels for turning them. You have to make sure that you're clearing enough space for this mandrel. It's not stepped. Now you can maybe alter this mandrel. This is the Beaufort, but you need to make sure that your drilling, you know, allows for, you know, all of these different things, especially on the cap. I would not. Eventually, I need to just alter this or make my own. There's no reason to be drilling a gigantic hole this deep in your cap. It's inefficient, and it also creates more airspace in your cap, which could lead to possibly your nib possibly drying out a little bit more. It's better to kind of keep things as close as possible around that nib and section. So I would alter this, which you can do on a wood lathe. I've found that I didn't particularly love turning brass on this thing with just like a carbide bit. Wasn't really my favorite thing ever, but you totally can. All right, so let's get to drilling this stuff. Whose nibs am I using? Yeah, I'm just using Yovo. You know, there's really Bach and Yovo. That's kind of the only, as far as I know, that's pretty much the only two that you've got choice of. And I don't think it really matters which one you use. They both seem to be, I don't know, I'm sure somebody can make an argument for one or the other, but I think Yovo's a little bit more prevalent. It seems like there's just more of them around to me. So I don't know if you can see this, but the WD-40, when you start spinning the thing, it kind of flies all over the place. So just be aware of that. Okay, I got my mark. We're all good. So I'm just going to double check my notes because I'm talking and thinking and cameraing. Okay. Get that started. We'll just get it going here. Nice thing is, you can almost go all the way. I'm gonna pull it back real quick here. I like to kind of clear the chips out of there too, so it doesn't have to re-drill it. Give it another little squirt. And then, like I said, I like to just stop the lathe. In many cases, it's okay to just shove it up in there, but if it does catch, you run the risk of it just jamming all the way through your blank. And what's happening is it's your tailstock. If it's not locked in, the drill bit can just self-feed itself, you know, or auto feed down in there, and you're better off just kind of slowing things down. Taking it step by step and not screwing things up. At least I am. It's always seemed to work good for me. Okay. And one of the reasons I have this pipe cleaner is to just kind of clean. Sometimes you get shavings kind of jammed in there. I wish it didn't have this long. Wish I had something else, but I don't. So that's how I do it. pipe cleaner to clean things out. Okay, so the T-bit is done. How are we doing on time here? Not too bad. Not too bad. Now another really cool tool is this little chamfering doohickey. And I think does Turner's Warehouse, Chad, do you guys have these things? You can get them on Amazon. I should get a link to these. These things are awesome. So all it does is it just chamfers puts a little chamfer on there. It's simple, stupid, but it really is nice. And that helps to kind of get the tap going, you know? All right, so we need to pull out our niche tool, the tapping doohickey. And we're going to convert it. It's like a transformer. Autobots roll out. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to put on, so I like to use the 10 by 1, 10 millimeter by 1 tap. And the way that I do it, I don't mess around with so there's different types of taps, okay? So for anybody that doesn't know this, most of you probably do, but I bought this set. Let me turn this little beeper off, hold on. I bought a set of these 10 by 1 taps, and one of them's got what's called a starter, I think a starting tap. One of them's a plug tap, and one of them's a bottom tap. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but this one has a lot of angle to it, so it's good for starting. It's adding that kind of the chamfer. But the problem is these first, like all the way down to here, you're not getting a full cut of thread. This one's about halfway up from there, so it's got a little taper. This one's called a plug tap, and this one's technically the bottoming tap, which is supposed to bottom out in a hole like this. I don't mess around with trying to start. I can, with this 10 by 1 anyway, I just start with the bottoming tap. It's just way easier. Otherwise, I'd have to like start with either a plug or a starting tap and then switch them out and do this. And there's really just no reason to mess around with that. Just get a bottoming tap and you should be good. Especially because this is a fairly coarse thread and it just seems to work fine. No problems whatsoever in this application. That's not the case for every situation, but for doing these section threads, there's just really no reason to have anything but the bottoming tap. All right, so we got that ready. Let's get a little bit of WD on the pieces. Can you guys, yeah, you can still see. Get this thing scooted up. Oh, I pulled the thing out. The only thing about this niche tool is I gotta extend my quill like an inch. Otherwise it bottoms out. And I don't know if this probably is a Laguna thing, possibly. I don't know. So I gotta reseat my thing. I always mess that up. Okay. Get that thing locked. Frankly, I don't even know if you really need to lock it because it's gonna follow the line anyway, but all right. I love this thing. Again, it's like magic. Look at the magic that we can do. And this is another case where, I really don't need threads that go super far, but I also have to make sure that I have enough tapped threads for my mandrel. All right, so just be aware of that. So I end up kind of going a little bit further than I really need to a lot of times, but I kind of need a little bit more threads because I don't put that many threads on my sections. And there we have it. Just gonna kind of blow that out, make sure, and this again, it is kind of handy to have these little pipe cleaners just to kind of clean out, make sure everything's good. And what I do before I start taking things off of here, you don't really want to be pulling your blank in and out, because of your chuck, because it will change the geometry. It'll change the, especially if you don't. So here's one little subject. A lot of people would tell you that you really should surface, like get your blank round first before you mount it and start doing all these functions, which it will give you, it may, there's a possibility that that will give you a little bit more accuracy on everything. I got to be honest, I don't really think it's necessary to do that, but that could help a little bit with the, if you find yourself having to take your blank in and out of your chuck, but it's best to just leave it and don't let it move. But anyway, I like to just double check and make sure that I've gotten everything. That's a little tight at the end. There might be some shavings down in the bottom there, because I think I tapped that enough. I'm going to tap it just a little bit further, because that wasn't really working for me. Yeah, you really, for the most part, you don't really need the starting stuff. I agree. Let's just make sure that, a lot of times it seems like I'm blowing pretty, like, I think that compressed air is at like a good 90 psi. And the funny thing is, you still, it seems like it's not, that's not the problem. Like there's, you know, you got it all out. And the funny thing is, there's sometimes still more junk if you like tap the blank on the lathe. Nope, I just see, it seems crazy because it seems like I'm tapping like threads all the way down to here, but it has to do with the taper. That's kind of what's going on with that. So just make sure you got everything, you know, fitting the way that it needs to, and you'll be good. Okay, so we got the body ready to go. It's all done. Can take that guy out. I'm gonna get this thing out of the way because I'm probably just gonna smack my hand on it. Yep, I don't know if you saw that. I tapped it on the lathe and even more came out. So just be aware of that. Like, it seems like you got all the shavings and junk out, but the thing is, if there's a ton of shavings in the bottom of this is gonna bottom out. It's not gonna, you know, unless you had extra room in there, it's not gonna seat properly. Okay. Just a couple things that I've found while I've been doing this that I'm like, what's going on? Why doesn't this work? And it's because there's junk in the tube. You don't want junk in the tube. Okay, so the next blank, let's go with the cap. That one's an easy one. Easy one to get done. It only takes like a few steps too. Kind of nice. Then we'll get on to the section. The section's probably the hardest thing, sort of. Not that hard, but there's definitely more steps involved. Lots of little drills, things going on. All right, so let's see here. $11 by 1. Yeah, but the problem is it depends on the size. So you're not going to use an 11. Let's see if I have this right. I don't think you would want to use an 11 by 1 if you were doing like 9mm threads for your body and cap. Like, you got to think about those types of things. 10 pretty much works. It seems like 10 will work fine for anything. What did you say? So 11 for, I like 11 for my section. Okay, so that'll give you a little bit more meat. I haven't found the 10 to be a problem, but again, it depends. It depends on what size everything else is and where you're starting. Because in some cases, you know, having a little extra strength helps. Like I said, I haven't really found that the 10 is weak. I think if you go down to 9, that's where you're starting to get like, it's, I don't know. I think more, I would love to see some statistics. You know, this isn't available anywhere, but I would imagine that more 9mm sections blow up than other ones. than 10s or 11s or whatever. And you can use, there's like, you know, 10 by 0.75. There's different thread pitches and all that kind of stuff. So it's just up to you which one you like. 10 by 1 is a pretty common size. You can get them anywhere. They're cheap. So that's another, you know, good reason. I don't know if, you know, I haven't looked for 11 by 1, but it will give you a little bit more meat on the section. All right, so again, this is where the body is going to go, so we need to drill the hole on that side. Just make sure you don't mess that up like I did. So first we're going to face this off. Okay, center drill. All the steps are pretty much the same. That's the other thing, is you kind of get to the point where you're like, okay, I got to do these. Like, these are just things that I have to do on every single one of them. I still like having my cheat sheet though. We'll center drill this. Okay. Now, I may do things a little bit different than other people as well. Again, on the cap, I'm using the Buford Ink mandrel. This dimension I have to understand. So this is, I think, 1.8 inch. Let me just measure this. So you're gonna have to, like, your biggest drill bit for your cap, and this is for the 14. But your biggest drill bit, like, you're gonna have to drill and actually, okay, so I actually cut in on mine. So this is actually right here. This is the end. So hold on, let me just grab a cap and screw this thing on real quick so you can see where it stops. It may be a little bit misleading if I don't show you this. So the cap doesn't actually go to this shoulder, this big shoulder. It actually goes down to here. If I put a cap on, that's where it stops. Okay, so taking a measurement, I don't want to measure from this side. I want to measure from right there. All right. And again, I'm not an expert when it comes to this stuff. It's just, these are the things that I've found. But so you basically, you need to go 1.8 inches to clear this mandrel. Now you could, like, you know, do what I did. And this used to go all the way to the end here, but I found it hard to get in there and turn stuff. So I wanted a little step. But you could come in and turn this down if you wanted to have, you know, really I only need for my cap threads. I mean, this is the drill size, it's a 33/64, I think. 30 is what I use. 30, what is this? Yeah, 33/64. That's what I use for for drilling these. I mean, really, that size drill bit only needs to handle the section. I had to think about that for a minute. And then I could step down to a smaller bit. So that 33/64, that just needs to mainly house the section, which is only, you know, I would only need maybe like 1 inch for mine. Then you could step down to the smaller size to house the nib. And I probably don't even need to even go super far, you know. Let's see here, it starts there. Yeah, like you could cut this down way farther. But that's an interesting thing about mandrels, is you can, you know, if you have very specific steps and sizes that you do, you're probably better off either having a mandrel made for you by a machinist or making your own. That way you can get very specific dimensions. And the thing is, if you can match up the dimensions, not have excess, you know, widths and lengths or anything like that, if you can really match up your mandrel to the steps in your blank, it's going to be more like rigid. It's going to hold on to that mandrel better because it all kind of fits nicely. So eventually, once I've kind of settled on sizes, I'm going to make my own. I think I'm going to try Delrin. My dad's got some Delrin stock anyway, so I'm going to see how that works. I don't know. I've heard good things from some people. I haven't necessarily heard any bad things, but... All right, so my first drill bit, and here's another argument, is some people will go for like the bigger drill bit first and then the smaller, which to me actually makes more sense and probably makes more sense in plastics, I think, maybe. However, really you can do it either way, and I've just always learned to do the small one first. The nice thing about doing smaller bits first is then your bigger bit will track that smaller hole. I think that's the idea, and in metal work, I think that's the way that I believe, and let me know if I'm wrong, anybody that's like an actual machinist, but I think if you're doing metal machining, that's the way that you would want to do it, is smaller than larger diameter. Basically because you're creating a pilot hole. That way your bigger bit doesn't wander off. If you started with like a gigantic 1/2 inch bit on this, it has a lot more, you know, it would probably technically wander more if you didn't have any kind of a pilot hole. And I'm not talking about a center hole using the little center bit. I'm talking like, you know, we already drilled a 6mm hole. Well, actually we didn't on this one. But on the cap, we had a 6mm hole drilled all the way in. All the bits that I use after that are going to track that line a little bit. So I think that's the idea, but at the same time, plastics are a little bit more kind of brittle and catchy than metals. And so, you know, there are some people that do the wider one first, shorter amounts. So let me know. It's too long for your section. Yeah, it's way longer. This thing is silly, kind of. The nice thing is you're drilling a big hole, and the blank can, you know, you're going in a little bit further with this wider size. And so if you're pretty close to that hole, it works. But these mandrels are not the most awesome. Like I said, I think that once you've figured out your dimensions of drill bits and everything that you do, you're much better off having custom made mandrels to fit the way that you drill things. I don't need a gigantic 33/64 hole going, how far is this thing? Going in, you know, 1 3/4. I mean, it only needs to go in like an inch at that diameter. So anyway, just a couple thoughts that I had since we're messing around here. Okay, what am I doing? So 25, okay, so my first hole is a 25/64, and I'm going to go in. So this is where you need to know how deep is your, you know, section and everything. Now, it would probably be smarter to do a section next. That would probably be a smarter way to do the operations. That way you know, if you've done all the machining on your section, you can literally measure how far everything needs to be before you start drilling your cap. I'm not particularly worried because I've been doing these things all the same, and I just kind of just grabbed the cap. Typically, I actually would do the section next. That way I know what my measurements are. But if you do things exactly the same to very specific measurements, then it doesn't really matter as long as you don't mess up. You know, you hit the right measurement. So I'm good. 2.1 inches is going to be fine for the nib size that I'm going for. So 2 inches, 2.1 inches deep with a 25/64. I got to think about things sometimes. 25/64 out. So I'm just going to double check that I have marks on this, but I've had other marks in the past. I just want to make sure that I got this right. Yeah, okay. 2.1. Okay. Are you guys ready for some drilling? I am. I'm just going to give it a little bit. Let's see. Does anybody have any other options for your like lubricant for drilling? Coolant or lubricant, whatever. So I mentioned, like I said, WD-40 mineral oil. I guess you could use water. I think that would probably be the, I don't know. I wouldn't do that personally, but there's literally cutting fluid that you can buy. Does anybody else use anything else? Okay, so one other one that like the first time I started doing this, some people suggested using like cooking spray. Don't do that. That stuff will rot if you don't get it all out, and it's not worth it. Mineral oil is okay. That's not gonna like rot on you. But cooking, the spray like Pam cooking oil, I would not go for that. There's better. Go for the WD-40 or something. I'm gonna move the camera real quick here because it's kind of right in my way. And I think you guys can get a better shot like that. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. There we go. All right, so we got this thing going. Let's see here. Delrin worked well, nice. Oh, they go from bigger to smaller too? Huh. Yeah. Blank spinning. Yeah, but you can get wander it depends. If it's just plastic, that's fine, but I don't know. Plastic compatible transmission fluid, huh? Pen Turner's Lube. I've never seen that one. Buford ink. Huh. Cool. All right, so let's get going here. And you always want to be doing the right feeds and speeds. You know, you don't want to be spinning this thing at 3,000, drilling a hole in it. It's not going to go so well. You also don't want to be going 100. So I usually am around 900 on most of these. That should work for most of your drill bits. So just be aware of that. Oh, we bottomed out. Lots of junk in there. Okay, so we got our 25/64ths. Let's see here. And we're going to go with the 33/64ths. Again, the limiting factor on that one for me is my mandrel. Like what I would rather have is, so we drilled in 2.1 with this, the 25/64ths. I would rather have a mandrel that was 2 inches long, had a thin point that was 25/64ths or so at the farthest end, and then it widened out for like an inch or so. You know, so it kind of was a little bit. It could probably even be possibly. How long is this thing? 2.1. Yeah. So it'd be almost about the same size. It's just. Oh no, it wouldn't. Sorry. It'd be actually a little bit longer, which would give the blank a little bit more support, possibly. Actually, it would give it more support. Because right now it's 1.8 or so. 1.78. So I would go 2.1, which is what I'm drilling to. But this furthest part would be, you know, I mean, pretty much. I just have to account for the section on that. So eventually I'll be making, like I said, I'll be making my own. One of the things, I'm kind of waiting to get our metal lathe like really up and running. kind of buried. We need to do some stuff before it's going to be like prime time. All right, and then we got our big drill bit, which I already have marked. This is the 33/64. Get in there. Probably could have taken that in a couple passes, but whatever. Try to clear as much of that out as I can. Dang it. Now the tailstock's in the way of the camera. I don't know what the best camera angle is, guys. Sorry. All right. And then again, we get the Neil's niche set up out. And we're going to do it with the big one. And we'll be tapping the 14mm threads on the inside of this guy. But there's a couple things we need to do beforehand. Again, I like to put the relief on the inside of the cap. It just feels better to me. Don't like having to look at that. And again, there's lots of different ways you can do this. I think the simplest way that I've found, I'm the type of person that would rather not do this by hand, honestly. I would rather have a tool that does exactly the amount that I need so I don't have to think or be skillful, basically. The main thing is I just don't want to screw up and take too much off. But the easiest way is how Chad did it. Just take your diamond tool, and you're probably, the issue that you have with this diamond tool is it may not clear. So let's see if I can get the camera in. You're probably going to have to raise your tool rest up. I don't know what the best way to get the camera in is. Let's see here. I don't know if this is going to be very extremely telling, but the problem is this gets in the way. So you have to kind of raise your tool rest up. Otherwise you're not getting the cutter. You need to raise the tool rest up and then angle this to get in here. There's, lots of other ways that you could cut this, but all I'm doing is just cutting a little bit of a relief in that cap, just so that the threads, it doesn't bind up at the end when you're putting your cap on. I don't know where to put the camera. I need a drone. It'll just hover where I tell it to go. Put the tool down. Let's see if I can get this. I want it. Okay, that looks pretty good, huh? So again, if I come in here, the bottom of the front of this tool thing, which another thing you could do if you really were feeling spunky, you could grind this away a little bit. I think that's kind of silly. I wouldn't necessarily do that. But instead, I can kind of raise my tool rest up just a bit. That might be enough, but you're probably going to have to kind of angle down just a little bit and come in. And I would probably recommend going with the negative rake on this. It'll be a nice smooth cut. Speed it up just a little bit and then come in here. And that should probably do it. This is the problem that I have. I just started doing it this way and I don't exactly know how much relief I need. That's why I prefer having a tool that just takes off the material and I don't have to think about it, Now I got a lot of chattering, so I'm actually going to sand that a little bit. I don't want chatter marks on the inside of that. That would make it worse than just cutting the relief on the tenon. I am gonna just kind of sand that. I don't need it going that fast. Sand that up a little bit just to smooth it out. I mean, I guess you could probably just sand this if you really wanted to also. I think it's easier just taking a cut, but like just not using a tool at all and just sanding relief. I think it would take you a little while. All right, so we got that good. And then the niche tool, cut some threads. I don't know how to do clips yet. I haven't done any of those, so my biggest thing is just to let you guys know, my dream in life is not to become the best pen maker on the planet. I do blanks is my main thing. So a lot of this has to do with, I need to be able to look at what my blanks look like finished. I enjoy making these, but I could care less if I make the greatest pen on the planet. I want to get these things kind of knocked out. Now, having said that, I want to be able to do clips, but I'm not going into business making pens anytime soon anyway. So my focus is just kind of getting these things knocked out. And like I said before, I'm kind of taking things slow, getting my bearings with all this stuff so that I can be able to do the steps without thinking, then start kind of playing around with stuff, let's see, what am I doing? Neil's niche. There it is. Okay. And I need my big tap. So yeah, so I am interested. Like I said, to be honest, I've never even seen anybody actually go through the steps on that either. I know it's probably not that much harder, but I think for me it would take, and the reason that I said that about the, doing the pens and stuff and not really caring as much about making the best ones, the problem is I have very limited time that I can do this stuff. My focus is on blanks. I need to keep my inventories up. There's things going on that I have to do. And so this is kind of like the pleasure part of it, but I just don't have a lot of time. And doing clips is going to add more time to that, to making each pen. So it's just one of those things that I haven't really had much time to do. And so far, I don't really know. I have an idea of how to do it, but I'm a lot better off seeing somebody do something once, or at least having them explain it, than just trying to do it myself. Okay, so here we go. And this is another case where for my cap, I only cut, this is not a very long tenon particularly. Let's see if I make sure I'm on camera. Yeah, it's only 0.2 inches or whatever. But I have to tap threads much further inside this, because now I could cut the threads off, I guess, or whatever. I could alter this mandrel, but the threads on the mandrel are significantly longer than what I need here. So eventually, like I said, custom mandrels will make things a little bit more, customized, and like I'm going to end up doing unnecessary thread cutting on this. For the pen itself, it's unnecessary for the pen. It is necessary for the mandrel that I'm using, though, to go a little bit deeper. Some people might argue that, in the final product, if you got threads going all the way into your cap, people would see that as like kind of an inferior product. So some of these things really do depend on, what is your end game plan for your pen making? Are you trying to make a very high quality, product, sell them? Because some people will be kind of judging it, comparing it to other people. And, if you're putting a bunch of unnecessary threads on your pen, some people might point that out that are, collectors or enthusiasts, customers. Things to think about. Things to think about. when you're just starting out, whatever, it's not that big of a deal, but you know, long-term goal is what I'm kind of, you know, what you should think about. It's a little bit tight, I gotta be honest. I might rerun that. This mandrel, these threads might be a little bit kind of gunked up too. Sometimes that can happen. You get cutting fluid or whatever, some debris in your, there may be debris in there too. But I think I'm going to run the tap one more time on these. It's not going to hurt anything unless I mess up and cross thread stuff. As long as you hear the little click. Oh, there's my mark. Let's see. Yeah, I should be deep enough. But I did take some material off. Do you see that? So my threads might have been a little bit tight there. Let's see how this mandrel works this time. Oh yeah. Look at that. That was kind of odd actually. So sometimes you might need to just go back and run your tap one more time, you know, just to clear some of the junk out of there. All right, so our cap is done. Let's see how this fits with our body. That's what I kind of wanted to make sure that we got to today. And that fits great. Let's see. Oh man, that's running concentric. Looks like one piece of material. Let's see what we can do here with our different positions. I'm just looking at the outsides of these blanks here. Like I said, I'm not gonna mess around. The way that you would adjust things is, let's see, how do you do that? It's been a while. You have to take some material off of one side or the other. So I think that I would actually take, help me out. Anybody, Chad's in here. You're gonna drag. I mean, I do want to, eventually it'd be fun to sell because I'm making pens, you know, so I'll probably end up getting into that. It's just my focus right now is not to make the greatest pen on the planet. It's to learn how to do this stuff and see what my materials. But I'll tell you what, they both feed each other. Making blanks and then making the pen, you're like, oh, I got to make some more of these. These are so awesome. What was I going to say? So how would you adjust? I think that you would, because the idea is you need to adjust where the turn stops. So in this case, I'm pretty sure that I would take some material off the bottom of the cap, and this would basically thread in further. Let me know if I'm mistaken on that. Now this is not the same blank, so these are not necessarily going to match up, but this would look, if I could get it to stop like that, would probably be a little bit better. Somebody's got a moped outside. I don't know. A little off the cap. Yep. Yeah, these are triple starts. Yeah, you know, I like the single start idea. I like the idea of that where, you know, especially if you're lining, you know, certain things up. But for me, I just personally couldn't tolerate sitting there spinning a single start thread. I like the triples because they're quick. And I think most people would rather just get their pen open and writing than messing around with, you know, I don't know. That's my personal thing. But the triples are so much more expensive that, you know, there's something to be said for just going for the single start. Okay, so we got the section left. This one's the most tricky, I would say. This one kind of, it's not hard. It's got the most steps. I mean, look at the difference. So this is all the steps. There's 13 steps for the section. what is going on outside? The cap is only 7 and the body is 9. So, you know, there's more steps involved, and, you know, it depends on how many steps you put. I try to put as many of the steps as possible, but definitely got a little bit more going on with the section. Now, in the event that I totally screw something up on this, I have a black section waiting to go. Let's see here. I like to square both the faces before I even start on these. You could probably do like one and then do some stuff and then the other. I'm just gonna, I square both of them, and that way I don't have to think about it. Oh, this thing's high. It's like, what's going on here? Raised it up a little bit. Now it might be too low. All right, it took a lot longer than it should have. Get that flat. It doesn't feel flat. It doesn't feel flat. It probably isn't flat. Somebody told me that your fingers can sense flatness. Like, I don't know what the numbers. They like quoted like numbers. They're highly sensitive. Like, you can really feel, you know, minor. Very minor, like thousandths of an inch, or, you know, different differences or bumps and stuff like that. Fascinating. Get it? Okay. Square the faces. Now, this is the key part. I got to start on the wrong side. Start on the right side of this thing. And I even have this written down in my notes. Now, if things would be a little bit different if you're not using the tenon cutter for these things. So I'm going to mount this with the nib side. That's why I mount nib and body. So this is where the body's going to meet up, but this is the nib side. So I'm going to mount it with the nib side in the collet. I'm going to center drill this guy and then hit it with the 6mm. Come on. Oh, too much. Center drill. And then we're going to go with the 6mm. And again, like I said, if your 6mm bit just seems like it's a dog and it's just constantly loading up and overheating, one, it may be dull, but these parabolic bits, parabolic flute bits, are really pretty killer. I mean, they just flat out knock out the... Like, I think if you had a full set of all the sizes that you needed in the parabolic, I don't think you'd even need cutting fluid for the most part. If you're doing a demonstrator, you know, like a see-through or transparent blank, you would probably want to go with some sort of a lubricant, but I don't think it's necessary at all with a parabolic. All right, so we got our 6mm. And then let's see, I didn't mount. Let's see here. Oh, I gotta mark this. I forgot. That's the thing. It's hard to get out of there. So I want a 0.9. Why didn't I write that down? Oh, I did. Mark section length. Ha! Wasn't reading my instructions, guys. So I'm going to go with, let me look. I feel like I changed this recently. What size is this section? I really like this one. .9. So I've been pretty happy with the 0.9 inch. This is all going to be personal preference or your customer, you know, whichever one. Kind of hard to mark the section sometimes. So what I oftentimes do, and I need to make sure that the, you know, I'm measuring like the section, not from the body. The body side is going to be where the threads are. So I'm going to put this there, and I'm more interested in what the section length is. I don't really care about the threads. I can cut some off if it's too long, you know, or whatever. And this is going to look really backwards, but this is just the way that I do it usually. That'll give me a line. Now I know how much the tenon cutter needs to take off. Tighten that down. Whoa, I lost my knob. 2 o'clock, dang. We're gonna push forward here. We're gonna get this going. Let's see, tenon cutter. The 10 millimeter. So we're gonna switch over our tenon cutter real quick. This time it'll be on camera even. Look at that. Moving up in the world. So I got my 10 mil. You know what would be really fabulous is if these things were stamped, Chad. All the bushings. That would be awesome. I'm just saying. More work for you. Just in case you know, had nothing else to do. Okay, so we got that going. I know, black's the greatest. And well, and to be honest, they actually, so you say for errors, and that is true, but the other thing is, in some cases, you know, it might look, maybe, you know, I don't know about better, but I mean, it may look pretty cool. Like it may be a good, you know, alternative basically, or whatever. Oh, that's a little tight. Might have to rerun those threads in there. Let me get my other section real quick. Just want to look at something. I made a couple extra blacks. Yeah, that's a little tight down in the bottom there. But anyway, you know, like the black, like having a solid color or a different color or something like that, sometimes it might, you know, even look like better in the end, possibly. It's a possibility. Just so it's not all just, you know, like, especially in a blank like this, it's got a lot of bright colors going on and like kind of craziness happening. Having that's something a little bit different might actually be preferable. But in this case, we're going to see what it looks like. The nice thing is you can make a black section anytime you want and add it to your pen. Customize like that. All right, so tenon cutting, I'm telling you guys, the tenon cutter is the tool of the century. I love this thing. My favorite. All right, I'm going to turn the dust collector on. And I always come in, you know, you want to keep a good firm grip on the chuck, but I'm very careful about this because it can get kind of grabby if you're just, you know, kind of jamming it in there. So I like to try and go as smooth as possible when I'm cutting. Back it off of there, pull that guy out. We're good to go here. So next thing I'm going to do is we're going to chamfer that real quick. Done with the dust collector. Let's just get that out of the way. One thing that's nice is there's a lot of these operations, you know, you don't really need, they're not dusty operations. And at this point, you know, you would want to maybe look and see, you know, do you have enough threads and all that kind of stuff, or you know, length. And a few people were talking about putting like a relief on the front and on the back. I forget who kind of showed that. I don't really think that's necessary, personally. I don't know what the advantage is. Let me know if you guys know. I don't know if Chad did that. Did you do that too during the series? I forget what the point was. So personally, I haven't seen a need for that. You know, my opinion is probably subject to change at any point, but that seemed kind of unnecessary. This is a case where I do put the relief on the tenon itself in the back. So I will be coming in on that one. Real quick, I'm going to do a little bit of light sanding. With some 600 grit. Not that fast. A little bit of 600, and then like I said, I go to 8. I don't know if this really makes anything that much better than just doing 600. Makes me feel better though. It seems like it would be shinier. I'm going to wipe that off. All right. Sand blanks. Let's see here. And then you want to support the hole that you made. Putting your bit. No, that doesn't really want to fit. Get in there. There we go. Okay. Support that. That way, you know, you're going to be cutting threads, and that can kind of squish on you a little bit. You don't want it squishing. All right, so we're going to cut the threads. So we're going to pull the Neil's niche out, and then we're going to use the 10 millimeter. And this is again one of those areas I just go from the back side of this. I don't do the starting thing. I find it's fine. I don't know if it has to do with the coarseness of the threads on the 10x1, but I don't use any kind of starter, you know, the starter threads, starter tap type thing on either part of it. Again, it's personal preference. It doesn't seem to need it, so I just keep that thing permanently in the backwards, or, you know, non-letters, non-words, whatever. The back side of it is facing out. Oh, I totally did that in the wrong. Put the right thing in. Let's put the right thing in here. There we go. Okay, let's see here. You did it with the X tool, nice. I like that idea. Chad had to step, because I was like, hey Chad, do more work, and he's like, I'm out of here. I don't want to hear any of these suggestions. All right, so we had a little bit of WD-40. I kind of just sneak up at the end there. I like having air. I know I'm blowing WD-40 all over the place, but you really want to be kind of careful. And there's really no reason to be like, oh, I got to get to the end of this thing, because you're going to cut a divot in the end of the threads anyway. So not really a big deal if you get it absolutely perfect. Now I'm just gonna, I find that if I just give it one more run after I've cleared all those chips and junk out, just give it a nice smooth run. Everything seems to work better for me. So don't be afraid to, you know, run the tap, or, you know, the die, whatever. Don't be afraid to run it a couple times. It's not going to hurt anything, as long as you know, make sure you're not cross-threading anything. Make sure you've got it, you know, lined up right or whatever. It's on the threads before. But it you know, sometimes weird stuff happens. It's not like plastic is like super strong or stiff. It's not metal, you know, so it can move. I mean, metal can move a little bit on you, warp. So just, you know, run it again and you'll be good to go. Okay, so we're going to flip the blank. That's looking pretty good though. Let's see if it fits here. Should have done this before. Actually, you know what I got to do is cut that relief real quick. It's not a big deal taking it in and out for this. I prefer, you know, the longer you can keep it in the same exact position in your chuck while you're doing drilling and all that stuff, operations on it, the better off you are. Like, frankly, it even kind of wigs me out that you got to flip it around and then re-drill it to work on the other side, you know. You guys see what's happening? Yeah, pretty much. I don't even have this tool handled. I just don't really find it necessary. All right, I'm going to double check. I'm going to run it on, you know, put it on there. Sometimes I don't get it the first try. It's a little sticky on the back end. I think this blank. I need to run the tap through this thing real quick. There could be some junk in the threads also. It's not a bad idea to have a tap handle handy, you know, because what I want to do, I just want to run this thing real quick. So it's and with the 10x1, it's easy to line up. Sometimes I find it really difficult to get the triple lead taps to like line up. And oh, is this the wrong side? It is, I think. No. Sometimes the triples are a little bit hard to get started again without, you know, kind of messing it up. But the coarser threads, the singles, tend to be pretty simple. This doesn't really seem like the right size tap thing. Okay, we got it. So anyway, it would be just as easy to like rechuck this, but I'm just gonna do this by hand real quick. Yeah, that feels pretty good. A little bit of junk in there. Okay, Always good to keep checking as you go. There we go. That's feeling still a little sticky on the end. I got enough off of that. There's plenty of relief, so I think it's just once I clean these things, I think it'll be fine. I run it through the sonic washer, sonic cleaner thing. I think there's just some junk in the threads probably. You always want to be careful when you're testing threads, putting things on and off before you've cleaned it, because you could kind of screw up the threads a little bit if there's a bunch of junk in there. Let me try this mandrel one more time. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right, I think we're okay. So we flipped it around. Now we're going to do let's see here. Now we got all those steps. So the first one that I use is a K-bit, which I think I've finally gotten to the new Yovo nibs, and I think it might be even a little bit tight. I'm gonna keep doing it the way I've been doing it, but I just got some new nibs in that seemed a little tighter, and I think it's this K-bit that might need to be a little bit bigger. What's the other? Let's see, K. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to keep doing it the way I'm doing it right now, because I can't really think about how all this goes. I need to draw a picture of all this stuff, but like I said, worst case scenario, it's a little bit tight, but it works fine. So K-bit, and that's going to go all the way through the blank. So I don't really have to think about much. All right, Amy, have a good one. Thanks for joining the fun. I know this one's pretty long, but I'd like to get the section finished here before we log off. So K-bit all the way through is the way I do it here. And then, and this should be pretty, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that these steps should really pretty much be the same as long as you're doing Yovo nibs, number 6. These numbers should pretty much work regardless. It's not based on any other dimension except the nib and the housing. All right, so the next one that I use is an N bit. And that goes 0.53 inches, 13.2 millimeters or so. I'm just going to double check and make sure that I have the right mark on my bit and where that is. One of the issues that you kind of run into, especially if you're just using a Sharpie, let's see if I can get this thing lined up, show you, is, the Sharpie line is 3 millimeters thick. So I like to still measure, even if I have a mark on my bit, just to hold up the calipers and see, okay, because here's the line, but it's I don't know, how wide is that? I'm going to go to millimeters because it's just simpler. It's 2 millimeters thick, right? So where on that line do I really need to go to? And some of this stuff doesn't matter that much, but so 13.2 or so is really where I need to go to. So really, I don't even need to go all the way to the end of that thing, but let's see. Let me switch to this 0.53. I don't know that 13.2 actually is 0.53. All right, so kind of on the front half, right? I don't know, kind of in the front of that line. Yeah, it's more like 13.5. All right, so I kind of know where I'm going. I this is where I like to make sure that I'm kind of dialed in, because it can kind of affect how the nib fits in there. All right, so let's see here. What was this? N bit 0.53 or so, in that neighborhood. And then we got the S bit is the final one. And that's just to clear. So all of these things, what we're doing here, for anybody that doesn't know, what we're doing is, I got to get behind the camera, I think. So there's all these little steps on the on the nib itself, and that's why we have to go and put all these different drill sizes through, because the actual housing needs to fit, and you really want to get these things pretty close so that everything kind of fits in there nice and snug. Otherwise you're going to have a sloppy nib, and nobody wants a sloppy nib. All right, now this one's tough because it's like 2.43 millimeters deep or so. So again, I'm going to measure this just to kind of see where does that go to. Kind of to the front of the line here. Tough thing about these is you have to, actually I need to pull my quill back. It'll be a little bit more accurate. Okay. You don't know if you did it right until you actually tap the threads. So in some cases I've had to actually go back and re-drill certain parts of this after I tapped the threads, which is not really ideal, but it is doable. Can't see anything. Now on this last step, the deeper that you go on this, you may end up where the nib kind of actually sits below the surface. So just to kind of let you know about that. And if you want it that way, then you would drill a little bit deeper. And it's kind of cool looking. I don't have a problem with that. It's not generally not my preference. But there are cases. I've seen some pretty cool looking pens that are drilled that way, where the nib kind of sits below the surface of your section. But again, every single one of these design changes could have an effect on your dimensions and all that stuff. So always be like, write down the measurements and all that stuff, and really think about, if you're going to change massive dimensions, know what other things that it could affect, Repair a chip. Drop the final buffing on the blank. Did you drop the blank maybe? I don't understand. Yeah, plastics definitely will change shape with like heat and all that kind of different stuff too. Right. So you always want to, it's never a bad idea to just, I don't usually use fluid on this one. It's really barely taking any material off. That should be enough. Be plenty, really. Okay, let's see if I did it right. Oh wow, I went way deep. So this is the case, like I said, where I went too deep. What the heck? I went way deep on that one. 2 point, I think that's not right. 2 point. Yeah. So I went a little bit deep. It's not a big deal, but it's not sitting like flush. I don't know if you can see. It's a little bit indented in there. Not a big deal. It's not like way off. But I drilled that S bit a little bit deep on that one, just to let you know. And then it's always fun to do that. All right, so I think we got all of the components and parts and things ready to go. So all we got to do is turn this thing up. And this is another area where, you could get the section like lined up all perfect. Like this would actually want to go, let's see. And you could put marks on the outsides of these, let's see, like this kind of. Like that. So I could get it lined up. And again, it's one of those things where I would want to take off. I would be taking off a little bit from the top of this tenon to, so that it would go like one more rotation. The problem is, by the time you actually turn down a section, I'm not sure that that's really worth it. I don't. It may or may not, but let's take off a little bit. So let's try and get this thing. So let me we'll give you guys a bonus. I know you've been here for like 9 hours already. So it needs to go. This right here needs to be up to there, I think, is how is that right? Or hold on a minute. Let me make sure that I know what I'm looking for here. So that's how it should be. So basically we need to take off whatever the gap is between these two, which is, it's about like a 1/16 maybe. So let's try and get that to work. I don't think that shouldn't affect that. It'll have no effect on the other two, which we didn't line that up anyway. So I'm going to plug this guy in. And we're just going to take off a little bit from the tip of this. And it should kind of get the section in the body lined up a little bit more. I usually just come in from the side. Just like nibble off some ribbons. And then test it. So, you really want to kind of like sneak up on this. Ooh, I mean, that pretty much did it. I could take off like just a little, just a hair more. Actually, I think it's good. I think it's good. So that's all it took to get that lined up. Now, in the end, is it going to matter? I don't know. But we do have it all lined up. So it's just about, to make adjustments, what you need to do is adjust where the end point is. It gets a little bit more difficult when you're dealing with the triple lead, because then you're like, oh, I got to line it up the right way, but then you've changed where it starts. So it can get a little bit tedious dealing with the triple lead threads and trying to like sneak up on that. I've found anyway. But just to kind of let you know. Now I need to come back. I want to put another chamfer on the end of this because I've kind of flattened it basically. Just to make that nice and smooth when we're putting it together. I just want to make sure that this is good to go. And like I said, these two pieces don't actually, they're not from the same blank. So I don't know that it really matters if I try to line anything up at this point on these two. So I'm not going to worry about that with the cap. But since these two did come from the same part, same blank, why not, It's a little sticky. It's a little bit sticky. And I don't think it's the relief in the back of this thing that's the problem. I think it has to do with the... I'm going to run it through the die. Maybe it's this side. Oh God. That's a good way to jack a nib up. Luckily, that's the test nib. I'm just gonna run this through the die one more time, if I can, without screwing things up. This is the tough part, is trying to get things to line up properly. Yeah, that seems to be fine. Just a little stickiness at the back. Oh, there we go. That is better. Running it through the die one more time. Help that out. I think it'll clear up once we clean it in the sonic cleaner. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the other view over here, guys, and I think we're going to wrap this stuff up. Whew, that was a long one, 2.5 hours. So, overall though, I pretty easily got through all that stuff. Granted, I've done quite a few of these now at this point, 10 to 15, 10, 20, I don't know. That's not a lot though. It's not like I've made 100 of these things and it's, whatever. I've made a few and they're not that hard. I could easily get through a live stream, although I did have a camera malfunction at the beginning there. But I think anybody can do this. And I think that if you're somebody that's interested in doing this, the sooner that you try it, the first one that you do is probably going to be a train wreck. You're going to mess up things or forget or do whatever. Who cares? It's not a big deal. But once you get the first one done, the second one is like way easier. And then it just gets easier as you go from there. I think most people just get worried, like, oh, it seems like it's going to be kind of tough. It's really not. Once you kind of lay out all the stuff, write your steps down, you're good to go. It's really, anybody can do this stuff. So I hope you guys get out there and try doing these custom pens, because I don't know. I've been loving it. Obviously, it's picking up interest. Lots of people are interested in it. You're not the only one. It is fun. So I hope you guys give it a shot. But I can't wait to see. Let's see. Let me think about how this is all going to go down. The shaping. So I find that doing all that work is actually the easiest. The shaping that seems to take me the longest a lot of times. So I don't know that we're going to be able to I don't know if I'm going to get this thing totally finished on one more stream. I think I should be able to, but we'll have to just see. But man, I think that's going to look pretty cool. I can't wait to see what's on the inside of these blanks. They look really cool on the outside. And actually, let me switch to the overhead view, because you can actually see inside, where we drilled. So I'm going to give you guys everybody that's stuck till the end here, I'll give you guys a little teaser on what to expect from the insides of these blanks. They're looking really good on the inside too. That's like the threads and stuff, but you can see a little bit more on this section. I don't know if you guys can see. There we go. That's the angle. Let me get on that middle. I don't know if you're going to see a whole lot in the body. Kind of hard to see on the body, but I think everything's looking good. So what I'm excited about, I'm always worried about color bleed, and it doesn't appear that we really got any color bleed. I don't think, nothing significant, which the divine pigments typically don't. They're usually pretty good. It's just you have no clue until you actually turn something down. And I haven't turned back any of these blanks. I wanted to just wait till the end and see, but man, these are looking pretty good so far. I'm pretty excited about these things. I hope you guys are too. And if everything goes well, once we get this pen done, then I'll open up the orders. We'll do like the pre-sale kind of thing or whatever. It's like a short run for some period of time. As long as you order one, I'll make, you know, I'm not going to just say, well, I'll make 20 and that's it. I'll make some for some amount of time, and then whoever orders during that time, you get one for sure. So anyway, it should be pretty cool. Let's see here. Yep, turtle wax. Yep. That was what Jim Hines told me. I actually have some. Frankly, I don't know if you need turtle wax, but I don't know what the... So is that what you said? Rubbing compound? Light duty. I don't know. This is heavy duty. Either way, you can use some sort of a polish type of, you know, compound, a gritty compound. You know, to be honest, you could probably just use, if you wanted to, you could probably just use Yorkshire grit. That would probably work just fine. Something like that, something that's got some grit in it. I don't know if that might be a little bit too coarse, but all you do is you just spread some sort of a compound, depending, you know, and like I said, I don't know what grit level all these different compounds are, but find one, and then you just put it on the threads and then just kind of work it a little bit, and that will, that works especially good when the pen's finished. Like you can't chuck it up or do anything, or, you know, whatever. You still should be able to like tap threads and stuff, but it works really well when everything's all done and you're like, there's just a little bit of, you know, catch. It's a little tight. You can just rub a little bit of that compound on and just kind of work the threads. Fixes the problem right up. So anyway, yeah, I think this pen should be pretty cool. These are cool blanks. So big thank you to Kid Cooper for coming up with a good idea on these things. And so next week we should be finishing this. I think we should be able to finish this up. It shouldn't take more than, it ain't going to take me more than like 2 hours to shape all these things. So we should get a finished pen. I'll need to kind of clean it and do, you know, different stuff to get everything finished, but it should be pretty cool. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining the fun tonight. I hope you guys have a great rest of the evening. Get in the shop, do some, you know, turning, do some casting, do whatever. Have fun doing it though, and I'll see you guys on the next stream.